स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मामृतङ्गमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। Let us offer our salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God incarnate. Let us pray to Him to lead us from unreal to the real, to lead us from darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. Sri Ramakrishna was talking to Pandit Shashidhar, emphasizing the importance of spiritual disciplines, and he said to step up spiritual practices with great earnestness. And he said, prayer forms one of the disciplines in our spiritual life. In a way, it is simple. It doesn't require great scholarship. Just if you have devotion, then you are qualified, and then you certainly make progress in the discipline of prayer. It's not that simply we come and sit and sing and go. It has got great spiritual significance. It is stated in our scriptures. Two great highways are available for attaining moksha. That is liberation. One is the highway of knowledge. Another, the highway of devotion. Both are highways. These two different, they look in their approach. They represent two fundamentally different orientations of the human soul to the ultimate reality. In the path of knowledge, the ultimate reality is regarded as impersonal. And without attributes. Whereas in the path of bhakti, devotion, it is regarded as personal with or without human form. In the path of jnana, self-effort is emphasized, while in the bhakti marg, the path of divine grace plays very important play. Divine grace. Bhakti is always associated with grace. The path of jnana is subject-oriented. It is an inquiry into the true nature of reality as the subject. Whereas the path of devotion is object-oriented. It is an attempt to realize the true nature of God as the highest object and establish a true relationship with Him. The path of bhakti involves definite relationship. I and thou. It is between the soul and God. The duality exists. God is there. I am here. I am the embodied being in bondage, suffering all sorts of miseries. There is Paramatman, the God, whose help I am seeking to overcome my sufferings. So he is very clear about the separate entity. There is a separate being who cares for me, who loves me, who wants to be loved, who is eager to shower His grace. So all these things will follow in the path of bhakti. The path of jnana, knowledge, it involves I, that relationship. The great statement of the Upanishad, Tattvamasi, thou art that. You are nothing but that. Because you have not realized the truth, because you have not yet become aware of your true reality, you are suffering. Suffering, you are in the state of suffering because of ignorance. Still you are in the dream state, where you believe unreal to be real, or unreal appears as real. As long as you are in the state of dream, you think it is real. Once the dream is gone, you laugh over the dream. But even this relationship is illusory, and what Jnana Marga establishes is not a relationship but the real nature of the transcendent self. You know what you are. That is the final goal. A person reaches in the path of knowledge. Whether you follow Jnana Marg or Bhakti Marg, meditation plays a very significant role. It is the continuous self-directed focusing of a continuous stream of thoughts on a mental object. This becomes possible only if the mind is freed from the hold of external objects and desires. What we generally see in our day-to-day life, mind is extremely active. It is more active than what you expect. Sometimes I should say it is overactive. It is too terrible to see the overactivity of the mind. So, a person who wants to march in spiritual journey, he must be able to withdraw the mind every time the mind runs after unreal things. So, withdrawing of the mind again and again and fixing it on the spiritual theme is called pratyahara. These terms are used in Raja Yoga. So, one way to do this is repeated practice. Keep on doing it. But especially during the early stages of spiritual life, the aspirants find this too difficult. They become disgusted with their mind. What is this? It's giving me a lot of trouble. But you have to pursue with great patience. We have allowed the mind to behave that way for so long. Now you want to control it. So you have to be patient. You have to be calm. You have to be calm. In fact, it is a test for you. It is a test to test your calmness. Intense prayer, however, quickly accomplishes it. Prayer, prarthana, it is the bhakta's way of practicing pratyahara. Just you set into prayer, you are automatically doing pratyahara. When you are singing in front of God with love and devotion, there is no room for the thoughts to come in and obstruct you when you are praying. Where is the time for the thoughts to enter into? Because you are engaging your mind, your senses, totally in the art of praying. Everyone is capable of a certain degree of concentration on external objects or even on mental images, provided one likes them. Liking is important. Liking. You must like it wholeheartedly. The main difficulty is in concentrating the mind at a higher center of consciousness. For these two conditions are to be fulfilled. The higher spiritual center should be developed and made active to some extent. And then the will and mental energies must be given a higher turn. Prayer accomplishes both these tasks. It is the best way to stimulate the heart center. Which is always suggested by all the Mahatmas. After a day's distracting work, you feel that your mental energies have got scattered in different parts of the body, and it is difficult for you to meditate. You are not having that mood. When this happens, what should you do? Try intense prayer. You will find prayer quickly gathers up energies at the heart center, and you feel a new access of strength. Prayer not only detaches the will, but focuses it upward. If the mind is not lifted to a higher center through prayer, the aspirant who tries to meditate very often runs the risk of concentrating on lower thoughts. So you must be careful. You must be watchful about your level of mind. In what level the mind is staying. You should not allow consciously the mind to slip down to lower thoughts. If the mind is not lifted up, it may sink into tamas, inertia, and be overpowered by sleep. That's why meditation very often ends up in sleep. People start with meditation, but end up in sleep. Sometimes they'll be snoring also. But we should sympathize with them. You should sympathize. They are struggling souls. But the funniest part is the man who snores doesn't know he's snoring. That's the problem. And if somebody points out he is snoring, he becomes sad. So, anyway, leave to God, that's all. What can be done? But in a general class like this, we can say, these are the things happen. So if you happen to slip into sleep state from the high state of meditation, then you must remember, in the class Swamiji told like this, I should be more watchful when I am meditating upon. So the best way to avoid drowsiness during meditation is to pray, 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 pray. Pray with eyes open, with mind open, with all your senses towards the prayer. The whole being to be set in that state. I am praying. I am praying. Give that suggestion to your mind. Then start pray. First you give that idea strongly into the mind. I was telling one of the persons. You repeat 10 times, I must get up morning at 4 o'clock. I must get up at 4 o'clock. Do it intensely, concentratedly, 5, 6, 7 times. You repeat that, then go to sleep. You're sure to get up at 4 o'clock. In the same way, before you start for prayer, not when the prayer starts at 6 o'clock, you come at 6:15. If somebody asks, where had you been? I had been to prayer. On the surface it's all right, you have come to the prayer, you have to sit down. But there is no effect upon it. It has not as, you don't have the desired effect of prayer, because where is your alertness? Where is your preparation? Without preparing, simply coming and sitting, and immediately after the prayer running. Is that the way of prayer? You must come at least 5-10 minutes before the prayer. Set your whole being in that fashion. Tell your mind, now I am sitting for prayer. Repeat this idea a number of times, as many times as you can. Set it in motion. Fix it up in a proper way. Then pray. And after the prayer, don't simply jump and run away. Sit down quietly for another 5-10 minutes. Then go. You will see how tremendous effect it will have. Prayer and sleep can never go together. Prayer keeps the mind alert. If your prayer becomes absorbed, if your prayer becomes intense, you become totally absorbed in the joy of prayer. So, prayer thus gives a sense of security to the soul. It detaches the will from desires and objects. It activates the higher centers. It gives a higher direction to thoughts. It keeps the mind alert. And above all, it clears the way for the inflow of the divine grace, divine power. As a prayer becomes intense, he finds that gradually prayer merges imperceptibly into true meditation. We find in Sri Ramakrishna's life, every time, first he would pray, then he would rise up to meditation. Prayer led him to meditation. Prayer is the starter of meditation. Once you are praying, that means your mind is set in meditation. So in order to set the mind in meditation, you have to start with prayer. So how very important prayer is, and how carelessly we do. Very careless of prayer. We can go anytime. That careless, as long as you have carelessness, it is very difficult to go forward in your spiritual journey. Carelessness is not tolerated in spiritual life. You have to be careful, more careful, most careful. Rising scale, not minus side, always plus. Careful, more careful, more and more careful, more careful. Like that. Keep on in that state. So, one may begin with a petitionary prayer using many words. But as prayer gains in intensity and depth, words drop away by themselves, leaving only a silent aspiration in the heart. Then the inner image becomes still and the mind flows in silence towards it. That means prayer has transformed itself naturally and spontaneously into meditation. So the easy way of meditation is through prayer. In order to get success in prayer, the most important thing is you must have a prayerful temperament. The test of a prayerful temperament is spontaneity. True prayer bubbles up from the bottom of the heart spontaneously. But it is also true that through practice one gradually acquires or strengthens the capacity to pray. Second important point to get success in prayer is that the prayerful temperament must be supported by a strong faith. Faith in the existence of God. That God listens and responds to prayer. This faith must be so strong that there is no room for negative or contrary thoughts. If we pray for something, but are deeply convinced that we are not going to get it, we only obstruct the working of God's grace. So prayer becomes effective only when the faith that supports it is total. So the basis of bhakti is faith. If you have faith, we can very definitely reach your goal quickly. The prayerful man must practice the sixfold surrender to God. Sixfold surrender. A very good word in Sanskrit for surrender is Sharanagati. This Sharanagati must be practiced in 6 ways. First is Anukulasya Sankalpaha. That's the first one. It means thinking of what is auspicious and favorable. Second one, pratikulasya varjanam. Not thinking of what is unfavorable or inauspicious. Third, rakshayati iti vishwasaha. That means faith in God's saving power. God is there to save me. Period. Fourth one, goptrutva varanam tatha. Always preferring God's protection. One is God's saving power, faith in God's saving power, rakshayati iti vishwasaha. The other one is goptrutva varanam tatha, preferring God's protection. The fifth one is self-surrender, atma nikshep. And the last one, feeling of helplessness, karpanye. Anukulasya sankalpaha, pratikulasya varjanam, rakshayati iti vishwaso, goptrutvam varanam tatha, karpanyo shadvida sharanagatihi. So these are the sixfold surrender to God. How deeply our spiritual masters have gone into this subject. I have seen some of the spiritual masters. What all I mentioned here, they are all manifest in their life. So, when you understand the great significance of prayer, how easily we can reach God, how easily we can overcome all miseries in this world, how easily we can be freed from bondage. You feel you are very close to God, and you feel intense joy, showing your closeness to God. The more you are feeling joy, indicates you are coming close to God. God's nature is joy. Ananda Swarupa, Paramatma. Sa Paramananda Rupa, Narada Bhakti Sutra says, Ananda is God, God is Ananda. Ananda means bliss, unalloyed bliss, purest form of joy, uplifting joy, which gives you thrill once you have that joy. You don't want to come down at all from that highest state of bliss, which we call samadhi. Samadhi is a state of bliss. Let us try to follow as much as we can. If you follow 1% of what is said, you go one step in your spiritual journey. If you follow 50%, you will go 50%, you will cover the journey. So journey depends upon your state of aspiration, how far you are intense, whether you are lukewarm or moderate or intense. Of course, you can very definitely speak philosophically. I have got lots of worldly duties. I have to attend those duties too. When you speak in that way, we will say, all right, carry on the duties. At the same time, think of God. That's all. What else can be done? Even if I say, devote your whole mind this way, come away like this, I know very definitely you will not do. So why should we say that at all? But on the other hand, you must see how you can progress yourself, how you must practice renunciation in your daily life. The more you are attached to the world, the more you feel miserable. You feel the burning sensation of suffering on account of your involvement in the world. It only shows you to practice renunciation. That's all. Truth is simple. Hard to practice. Thank you. I'm sitting. Now I will read. Personal hospital. Page 494. 3 kinds of bhakti are found according to the nature of the man. Sattvic bhakti, rajasic bhakti and tamasic bhakti. Sattvic bhakti is known to God alone. It makes no outward display. A man with such devotion loves privacy. Perhaps he meditates inside the mosquito net where nobody sees him. When this kind of devotion is awakened, one has not long to wait for the vision of God. The appearance of the dawn in the east shows that the sun will rise before long. A man with rajasic bhakti feels like making a display of his devotion before others. He worships the deity with 16 ingredients, enters the temple wearing a silk cloth, and puts around his neck a string of rudraksha beads interspersed here and there with beads of gold and ruby. A man with tamasic bhakti shows the courage and boisterousness of a highway robber. A highway robber goes on his expedition openly, shouting, kill, plunder. He is not afraid even of 8 police inspectors. The devotee with tamasic bhakti also shouts like a madman, Har Har, Vyom Vyom, victory to Kali. He has great strength of mind and burning faith. A Shakta has such faith. He says, what? I have uttered once the name of Kali and of Durga. I have uttered once the name of Rama. Can there be any sin in me? The Vaishnavas have a very humble and lowly attitude. Looking at Balram's father, Sri Ramakrishna said, they tell their rosary and whine and whimper. O Krishna, be gracious to us. We are wretched, we are sinners. A man should have such fiery faith as to be able to say, I have uttered the name of God. How can I be a sinner? Imagine a man repeating the name of Hari day and night and at the same time saying that he is a sinner. So saying, Sri Ramakrishna became overwhelmed with divine ecstasy and sang. If only I can pass away repeating Durga's name, how canst thou then, O Blessed One? withhold from me deliverance, wretched though I may be. I may have stolen a drink of wine, or killed a child unborn, or slain a woman or a cow, or even caused a Brahmin's death. But though it all be true, nothing of this can make me feel the least uneasiness. For through the power of thy sweet name, my wretched soul may still aspire even to Brahmanhood. We sang again. Behold my mother playing with Shiva, lost in an ecstasy of joy, drunk with a draught of celestial wine. She reels, and yet she does not fall. Erect, she stands on Shiva's bosom, and the earth trembles under her tread. She and her Lord are mad with frenzy, casting aside all fear and shame. Pandit Shashidhar was weeping. Vaishnavacharan, the musician, sang, O tongue, always repeat the name of Mother Durga. Who but your Mother Durga will save you in distress? Thou art the heavens and the earth, and thou the netherworld. From thee have the 12 Gopalas and Hari and Shiva sprung. The 10 embodiments of divine Shakti art thou, and thou the 10 avatars. This time save me thou must. The moving and the unmoving, the gross and the subtle, art thou. Creation and preservation art thou, and the last dissolution. Thou art the primal root of this manifold universe. The mother of the 3 worlds, their only savior art thou. Thou art the Shakti of all, and thou thine own Shakti too. As a master listened to the last few lines, he went into an ecstatic mood. The master himself sang, O mother, for Yashoda, thou wouldst dance when she called thee her precious blue jewel. This song signifies the oneness of Krishna and Kali. Where hast thou hidden that lovely form, O terrible Shama? Dance that way once for me, O mother. Throw down thy sword and take the flute. Cast off thy garland of heads and wear thy wildflower garland. If without Shiva thou canst not dance, if without Shiva thou canst not dance, then let Balarama be thy Shiva. Dance, O Shama, as thou didst dance when thou wast Krishna. Mother, play on thy flute again, once so full of delight for the gopis. Play again on thy magic flute, which called the cattle in from the pasture, stopping the Jamuna's murmuring flow and turning it backward. Hot in the sky, the sun would burn when Yashoda, restless for her Krishna, fondly would call, Here, my Gopala, cream and butter, eat them, my darling. And she would comb his long black hair and carefully braid it, bending thy supple body, mother, both at the neck, the waist and the knee. Thou didst dance with thy friend Sri Dama, while thy 2 anklets played the music. Tataya, tataya, tata, taitaya. Hearing their captivating sound, the gopis would rush there. Again, Pandit Shashidhar shed tears of love. Sri Ramakrishna came down to consciousness of the world. Pointing to Shashidhar, he said to Yam, Why don't you prod him? He wanted him or some other devotee to ask Shashidhar a question. Ramdayal asked Shashidhar, The scriptures speak of Brahman's form as a projection of mind. Who is it that projects? Shashidhar replied, it is Brahman itself that does so. It is no projection of a man's mind. Pratap, why does Brahman project the form? Master replied, you ask why? Brahman doesn't act in consultation with others. It is Brahman's pleasure. Brahman is self-willed. Why should we try to know the reason for Brahman's acting this way or that? You have come to the orchard to eat mangoes. Eat the mangoes. What's the good of calculating how many trees there are in the orchard, how many thousands of branches and how many millions of leaves? One cannot realize truth by futile arguments and reasoning. Pratap said, shouldn't we reason any more then? Of meditation. It immediately quickens your heart. It kindles your heart. It raises your emotions to that high level of thinking. As I said, you must have prayerful temperament, and you must do prayer with overwhelming Shraddha. You must feel that prayer is part of your sadhana. So, it is just like worship. You are doing service of God through prayer. So, prayer establishes, as I said in my course of talk, a relationship between you and God. Prayer plays a very important role in the path of bhakti. As I said, bhakti oriented, where you have got the duality. God is there separate, and I, the embodied being, separate. I am seeking God. That attitude, but it is a highway. Both the highways reach the same goal, the highway of knowledge, the highway of bhakti. And in that process, prayer plays a very significant role. So, as I said, the prayer should be done with all zealousness, earnestness, based on your firm faith in God. Then naturally, it has got a wonderful effect upon the system. First of all, the prayer, it stops all the extraneous thoughts for the time being. When you are concentrating on your prayer, when you are absorbing yourself in prayers, the whole being is engaged in the act of praying, then there is no room for any thought to creep inside. So that way you are shutting them all out. So by constantly practicing prayer this way, you are automatically practicing meditation, because prayer leads to continuous thinking of the spiritual ideas. It makes you to think your chosen deity, and you are overwhelmed in that mood. So prayer acts as a protecting shield. It protects you from slipping down. So that way, it helps you to maintain your high spiritual level. It purifies your vasanas. It strengthens your willpower and makes your mind cooperative. All these results you will get by prayers. Anything else?
I was thinking of Maharaj. I asked this question because in the Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna says, and I quote that verse, Tesham satat yuktanam bhajitam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yen mam abhyanti te. Those who are ever steadfast and worship me with love and devotion, I bless them with the knowledge by which they enter the realm of divine peace or divine grace.
Correct.
So it seems that it is the through practice meditation that leads to that divine peace and divine grace.
Yeah, that's true. Prarthana, prayer, that itself becomes yoga if you do it vigorously. It's called Sankirtana Yoga. Sankirtana Yoga. That means by constantly doing prayer, you get absorbed yourself in that state and you get the vision. We have got many instances that way. Very famous Tyagaraj, a great musician, he has composed several hundred songs on Sri Ramchandra. He was a great devotee of Sri Rama. Through singing, he got the vision of Sri Rama. Praying and praying, he got the vision of Sri Rama. And there is another saint, his name is Swami Dikshitar, another great saint. He has composed all songs in Sanskrit. All his songs are in Sanskrit. Beautiful Sanskrit, beautiful hymns are there. Just he was keep on singing, singing, singing. Lost in ecstasy. There are many cases that way. What is very important here is that you must like it. You must have the temperament. Suppose you may say, oh, I don't have prayerful temperament. All right, there's so many ways. You take to some other way, that's all. Don't feel sad. That's the thing. See, God is so gracious, He has provided infinite paths to reach Him. Infinite paths to reach Him. You can go by any path you want. But what is needed is you must go. That you are not doing. Talking, whole life you are talking only. You have not started at all. When do you start your spiritual journey? Next life? If you don't start now, what guarantee is there you would start next time? So you must start somehow. Even if it is one step, doesn't matter. You start. Initially you have to struggle very hard. Preparations are very important. Then you will get wonderful results. Once the results come, you are just overwhelmed by them. That's all.